Good evening. I know we may have some watching online on Facebook, so just want to let you know we're waiting for quorum. We have four present, and we need at least two more. So as soon as we get quorum, we will start, and if not, we will. I'll come back and make another announcement. All right, good evening. Welcome to the July 10th work session of East Point City Council. Madam Deputy City Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Shropshire. Councilmember Robinson is absent. Councilmember Renee. Councilmember Bailey. Councilmember Cummings is absent. She let the clerk know she will not be able to make it. Councilmember Cook is at a conference. Councilmember Butler. Councilmember Gordon. Madam Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. So let's go through the agenda items. It looks like there's probably only a couple that can move forward, and then I'll go through the previous agenda items. Item number 12, I have a question on that one. Item number 13, any objection to that going on the consent? Chief did a presentation, I think, at his update last month about the $1.6 million grant from the state, and this is the document for that. All right, the next one, approval of task order for Brown and Caldwell for water model clarify rehabilitation fiscal year 2024 CIP.
Consent.
Item 14. Item 15, any objection to this going on consent for
Consent.
water main? I have questions on 16 and 17. 18 would need to go to the agenda. Is the applicant here for 3339 Harrison Road? Okay. All right, so we will put you at the top of our discussions. The annual surplus auction, I think that needs to be discussed. I think the rest of them will need discussion as it relates to previous agenda items. Update on policing, Mr. King. We have, I know our chief is, I see Deputy Chief Popham. Okay. Update on commons development. So that was an addition. So assuming we're moving forward on that one. Number 3, discussion on bank-owned property, Councilmember Shropshire.
We can move it to the next work session.
So I was about to say July, but that's August work session.
Yes,
Adoption of streets, Councilmember Shropshire.
it could stay.
Squatters in East Point.
It could stay.
Alcohol consumption hours at businesses.
Oh, that can stay.
Resources and supports to strengthen the permitting process, Councilman Bailey. ARC Green Community Certification Employee Commute Options. I know that's Councilmember Robertson. Let me look at, let me just see if there's any ask for anything and we could put it on the agenda. See. So there is a sample ordinance attached to the agenda item. I know he brought this at a previous work session. So for now, we could put it on the August work session agenda. And if he is prepared, he could have you move it to the agenda for Monday. Utility outage notifications, Councilmember Gordon. Mr. King, we have updates on number 10.
Yes, I gave a brief update on that one.
Okay.
Yes.
Item number 11, comprehensive plan update. We need that presentation for staff. Okay. So Madam Deputy City Clerk, I have items 3 and 8 going to the August work session. Items 13, 14, and 15 to consent. And we will start with item number 18. Do we have any non-staff people here on any other items other than item number 18? Okay. So, Mr. King, we could start with item number 18, the ordinance granting special use permit for a habitable accessory structure located at 3339 Harrison Road.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. Good evening to our guests this evening. Kimberly Smith will come forward and give an overview of this particular item.
Thank you, City Manager King, Madam Mayor, and fellow council. In reference to this item number, property located at 3339 Harrison Road, case number 2023-U-001-05. It's a special use permit. The applicant is Mr. Jeff Naro. The zoning is R1A, which is our urban residential zoning district. And the request is for converting an upper level of an existing garage into a housing accessory structure. The zoning on this property, as stated, is R1A, which is our urban residential zoning district. The future land use is traditional urban neighborhood, as shown on the map. These are photos of the property. These are photos of the existing garage to be converted. This is a site plan, a proposed plan of how the garage is going to be converted into a habitable accessory structure. And there is a copy of the site plan showing the house building footprint as well as the garage building footprint. Staff and Planning Commission have recommended approval, and the applicant is present.
Right. What's the applicant's name again?
Mr. Jeff Naro.
Jeff Norman?
Naro.
Merrill. Mr. Merrill, is there anything you'd like to share? I know you're here with us this evening. Councilmember Renee.
Thank you. What's the square footage of the main house?
The square footage of the main house is let me find out.
I think I can help you out a little bit. It looks like the garage has something on top of it already, and because it's attic space, so it's only 452 square foot. So I guess the question is he expanding the footage on the garage attic space?
No,
He's not. So what happened is, the only reason is because our ordinance would not allow for the structure on the back to be bigger or larger than the main structure. So it won't be, so according to, looking at these pictures, it doesn't look like he's going to add on anything. So I think he will be well within the ordinance. It looks like he's just doing a loft out apartment, and so to speak, so that will be good. How would the electricity or the utilities be tied into the main structure?
that's correct.
Okay, so yeah, I think he will be good to go. That's the only questions that I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? If not, this requires a public hearing, Mr. Morrow, so it'll be on our agenda for Monday at 6:30, and public hearings are before public comment, so it'll be kind of at the top of the agenda. All right? Madam City Clerk, Deputy
Thank
City Clerk
you.
agenda. All right, let's go back to item number 1, update on policing, Mr. King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Deputy Chief Papa will come forward and give an update on policing.
Okay, better? Okay. Good evening again, Mayor and Council. First off, I want to just talk a little bit about problem we've been having with the Motel 6 at the corner of Harrison Road and Virginia Avenue. That the establishment, as far as the age of the building, has been there 40 some odd years. Right now, we entered into an agreement with them. There would be 2 off-duty officers on site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We did this with other properties before, and we've had some positive results from that. So we're looking forward to that. There were also some patients that were being housed there that had come to our attention, and they were cited for that, and the patients will be removed by the 17th of July, which is 1 week from today. One of the other things that we're doing this month, school starts in Fulton County on Monday, August the 7th. So we will be meeting with the different schools in the city just to make sure their safety plan and our safety plan, reaction plan are up to par. This will happen in the next couple of weeks. The teachers planning, I believe they start coming back to work about the 1st of August, about that Monday. And now I'll take any questions anyone has.
Any questions? Thank you for that update on the Motel 6 situation and all the work that you all are doing with our solicitor as well. All of that's been finalized. I know they had a complaint filed against them, so all of this is a part of that resolution. Solicitor Williams?
Yes, ma'am. They had to submit a rehabilitation plan.
Okay.
So they did submit it. The only question I just had as outlined was the time frame. We wanted to shorten the time frame because they were before the city's police department on an earlier nuisance back in 2017. So we wanted to shorten the amount of time that they had to come into compliance on this one.
Sounds good to me, sooner rather than later. Okay, any other questions? All right, thanks, Chief.
All right, thank you.
Next up, updates on Commons Development, Councilman Shropshire.
Thank you, and I will go to the the city manager, who can ask the deputy city manager to give us an update on the Commons Development, where we are, what's the time frame on that information.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to allow our Deputy City Manager, Ms. Janice Elias, to give an overview of this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Janice Elias, Deputy City Manager. Just to give you a few highlights of what has occurred over the last 2 to 3 months. On June 1st, we actually held another community meeting at the City Hall Annex building, in which Excel Lewis, representative for My Match Development Group, along with members of his other team, were present to once again give an overview of the project. But they also had copies of the land disturbance permit plans that were submitted. They had a copy of the schematic design plans there available for persons to review if they wanted to look at them. They also kind of gave an overview of scheduling and also indicated the 2 critical items that would dictate the actual groundbreaking activities for the project. And those 2 critical items would be the approval of the land disturbance permit application and receiving the actual permit and the execution of the purchase sale agreement. They did submit their land disturbance permit application back in the end of May, beginning of June. There are some revisions that they have to submit. Once they complete those revisions, those will be resubmitted to the planning department for distribution to all of the service. Once the city has actually provided approval of those plans, the plans will then go to the state Georgia Soil Water Conservation Commission for their review and approval. Upon the state's approval of the plans, we can actually issue the land disturbance permit. With respect to the purchase sale agreement, we are in the final stages of finalizing that document. The development team did have to get an updated appraisal, which to my understanding was available as of July 7th. I'll find out for sure tomorrow because we've actually been meeting with the team on a weekly basis. So I'll find out definitely if they have received that updated appraisal, because that amount is the amount that would be included in the purchase sale agreement that will come before you all for review and approval. Also, during the month of June, it was June 22nd, because we are getting close to land disturbing activities. Schultz Construction, which is the general contractor component of the development team actually held their contractor meet and greet here in City Hall. It took place from 10 o'clock a.m. until 2 o'clock p.m. And it actually turned out to be a really good event. We had approximately 34 different vendors to actually participate in that event. And it ranged from cleaning services all the way to engineering infrastructure companies who were interested in finding out how they could possibly be a part of working on the project once construction begins. So that's probably the two biggest meetings that have taken place, as well as the update on their submission of land disturbance permit, as well as the execution of the purchase sale agreement.
So question, so basically the two major components that we're waiting on are the land disturbance and the purchase sale of the land. And without that, they can't move forward until they get the land disturbance.
That is correct. We cannot turn dirt until we actually have approval of the land disturbance permit. And we also would have to execute the purchase sale agreement, because that actually transfers control of the property and gives them permission to actually start working on the development itself.
Okay,
And it's anticipated that we will be able to present the purchase sale agreement to you all in August.
so let me ask you this. When the city built the city hall, did they go through the same process with the land disturbance and all of that?
Yes, the city has to follow the exact same processes that any other private developer would follow. So when it comes to any type of construction development, we had to go through a land disturbance plan review process. Following that, we had to go through a building permit review process. It's the same process we actually used when the fire station number 4 was constructed as well.
Okay,
So we followed the exact same processes as any other company coming in desiring to turn dirt in the city.
okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't see any other lights, but I will say that I'm very concerned with the quality of what has been shared with the community. So I don't know if they're art pictures or they're actually the design of the building that they anticipate building in our downtown, but it is not even of equal quality as Malibu Point. It's literally just some stucco in 2 different colors. So I think it's critically important before we actually approve a purchase sale agreement that one of the conditions be that this council approve the design of what actually would be constructed. Again, I don't know if those are just concepts, if we got from concept to an actual design, but what has been shown is very concerning as it relates to the quality of the type of development that this will be in our downtown, and it's not even compatible with Malibu Point and the exterior design of that building. So I want to put my concerns on record now, and I'll continue to echo them throughout the process. I think I've echoed them previously, and I don't think we've had any movement around council actually having input or approving what is being shared with the community. In fact, information gets shared with the community prior to getting shared with council. So as we move forward, and the goal is to have a purchase sale agreement before us in August, those are the things that I'll be asking for, and whether council approves it or not, it will be up to council, but those are the concerns that I've continued to have throughout this process. And hopefully they will be addressed between now and the time that a purchase sale agreement is brought before us. It's not an attempt to try to delay the process. It's just a repeated ask. And I still haven't seen a design that I think is compatible to what we already have or the future of growth in our downtown. So do we want to put it on the August work session, anticipation of the purchase sale agreement now, or do you all want to wait to see what happens? Mr. King, Ms. Elias?
Actually, we'll put it on the agenda to make sure that all of the documents are in order. So if everything is in order, we'll put it on the agenda for August.
Councilmember Shropshire, do you have anything else? No. Okay. That was August. adoption of streets, Councilmember Shropshire.
This has been on the agenda for a process or something in place as to how someone or if an organization wanted to adopt this street. So, Madam Mayor, if you can get any updates from the interim city attorney.
Either interim city attorney or staff, I think we have an ordinance already that deals on this, so if we have any updates on the questions.
I actually researched, I didn't see an ordinance that was on the books that dealt with the adopt the streets.
Sorry, I'm thinking street naming. Totally different. Yes, thank you.
No, no problem. So we did research. The state does allow a process that allows a municipality to create and adopt the streets program. I've actually put that in an email, a draft resolution, which is required along with the draft ordinance to the clerk of the city. And I asked that it be distributed. It was a little later in the afternoon. So, but I'll make sure I send it out to mayor and council, but the process is there. It generally, according to my research, goes through Public Works, but it is not required to, so it can go through any department that the city deems it wants it to go through. But I've gone ahead and taken the liberty of creating not only the resolution, but the proposed ordinance for the city to utilize if it just deems that it wants to move in that direction.
Councilmember Shropshire, I think interim city attorney said he sent it to us, so we haven't seen it. Do you want to, but it's been provided to us for the review. So do you want to put it on the agenda for Monday? Was that July 17th? We can put this on the agenda, the resolution and ordinance. You have both, you said. Okay. Any questions, concerns? All right. Okay, and once we get, it'll go on the agenda because we'll need to discuss it and talk about it. I won't suggest that we put it on consent. But we can look at it between now and Monday. Okay. Squatters in East Point, Councilman Shropshire.
Thank you. Okay, this is back on the agenda now. Before you have minutes, so that we can see it from the updates. I know the last time.
I know the last time we had this discussion, they came up with a hotline number to call. So where are we with the hotline number for people to call with complaints? I believe Heritage Park and probably other areas are still having problems with squatters. So where are we with the hotline? And I'm going to continue to ask this question. Is there more that we can do? Because I know we were told that there was nothing else needed to be done, but somehow we came up with a hotline number. So where are we with that process? Madam City.
I think that's a question for our interim city attorney.
Yes, ma'am. And thank you, Councilmember Shropshire, because she's been incredibly helpful in helping us kind of form this and move it forward. Thank you. We really appreciate your help on that. We did create the hotline that not only allows for, and I think, Deputy Chief Papa is here, not only creates, it allows an email, a dedicated email, but also a telephone number. The committee meets on every Monday, and the committee is police and solicitor's office or / city attorney's office and fire. We have about 6 complaints that we received. Letters have gone out to those owners. The first letter should be back on the week of the 20th of July. And we're following that flow chart essentially that we gave to Mayor and Council the last time we were here. We are also still exploring other avenues and ways to address the issue. I was thankful to receive in our last briefing from Deputy Chief Popham that the amount of squatters that they've identified has began to decrease. So we're excited about that piece of it. Deputy Chief Popham, do you have anything else you'd like to add on to that? And if anyone wants to join our meetings, they're by Zoom every Monday at 5 o'clock.
Just that the number of complaints that we have received in the past really 45 days, you can go back to May, and almost 60 days. And the complaints have decreased. It's decreased with, obviously, we made some arrests. The neighborhoods have been very helpful, being very vocal, pointing out particular houses. So we've seen the numbers go down, and with this particular hotline and the email and being able to meet and talk about it to come up with a solution, I believe it's working. It's definitely gotten better.
And what solutions are you all coming up with? So you mentioned arrest.
Yes.
Are there other solutions you all exploring?
Just the fact that we have, as a police department, because when this hit us, it was obviously something we haven't experienced to this level. So, we reached out to the solicitor's office with help with the prosecution. And as a result of that, some of these, brainstorming ideas that we came up with, as well as also, we talked to the district attorney's office and other law enforcement agencies across Metro Atlanta about this.
So this is for just squatters in general, not about that sheriff affidavit thing that was talked about before?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
The affidavit is actually just a piece of paper that assists us from getting something from the actual owner, if he or she's willing to give it to us, that we will send to the squatter to say, we know you're not supposed to be here because the true owner says you're not supposed to be here. But we reached out to the Solicitor General's office as well. One of the things that we had to our disposal that we were able to use is the GS always messes up, GCSSSA, the Georgia Clerk's Authority, right? So because it updates in not real time, but more frequently than the tax assessor and the tax commissioner as to who the true owner is. So it allows us to really send it to somebody who has touched that property in more recent times. And that's actually as a result of kind of when Councilmember Shar said, well, how we found all these people are out of town. She's right. A lot of these people, what we found from the ones that we have, about 60% of the ones that we have, actually a great majority would be out of state.
I noticed after our last discussion, there was another situation in DeKalb County where the true to affidavit was used for the person who was away in military service. But on the second case that came after that, it wasn't used. And I think that's a very extreme and rare process that they'll use. And it was probably because the person was away serving our country. So it's good to know that this is a more comprehensive approach that you all are talking and collaborating in a multi-departmental way, cross departments, to try to figure out like how to move forward. And also what's great to know is that the numbers have gone down.
Okay.
All right. See any other lights, Councilmember Shropshire? All right, Madam Deputy City Clerk, August work session. Next up, discussion of alcohol consumption hours at businesses. Councilmember Shropshire.
So we had the discussion on businesses that are operating after hours, basically running a nightclub, and looked into changing hours when they're in a residential neighborhood. So it's not gonna affect every business, especially the one at Camp Creek, but just those that are in a residential neighborhood that are going beyond the hours that are creating problems. And I know when we discussed this, they were gonna look into the ordinance. So Madam Mayor, if you can refer to the interim city attorney to see where we are.
Attorney Williams.
I have no idea what she said. If she could repeat it, maybe?
So I think we've had, it seems to be comedy. So I think we had a discussion previously about consumption hours of alcohol at businesses because of the concerns at several restaurants that's operating as nightclubs in the city at previous work sessions. And I think when we discussed it previously, the question was, what are the hours that it's allowed in our city, and do we need to look at adjusting those hours?
Right. So the hours, I think we talked about it, the hours for restaurants, because we talked about a lot of the, actually, we don't have in my last check, we don't have one entity or business that has a nightclub license in the city of East Point, right? And we know that the restaurants require them to be closed at 2:00. I came from out of town back into the city at 3:00 in the morning from the airport recently and saw one business in downtown that was open at that time and not closing but open. So I think that's part of the concern. I did speak, and I think we were going to talk about speaking with GMA. I did speak with GMA with respect to that because they were going to do the audit. They indicated that they had a person they had one company as a vendor that does that audit on behalf of municipalities where they determine whether or not 50% or more of the gross revenue of the business is actually for food as opposed to alcohol, and that entity that does that study, if you will, is out until like September, I believe he indicated, is what Rushi said to me. So I asked him to put us on the list. So as soon as that person gets back, that entity gets back to work, that we could be a part of that process so that we can really get that help. Now, we can also, as what I learned, go out and find somebody to do a preliminary study behalf as a vendor that's armed through Ms. Smith's office. But that will be something Ms. Smith would have to kind of initiate, and I'm happy to work with her on that because I went ahead and did some research because I understood that Councilmember Childs wanted something done immediately on it, and we may have not wanted to wait until September, October. So it appears that we could do it that way. It wouldn't be the GMA folk, but at least we'd have the data.
Yeah, that was something I wrote down again while you were talking. Before you mentioned it, when we talked about it previously, we also talked about the audit by GMA. So thank you for giving that update on that. Did Rushi kind of give a time, Attorney Patel give a time frame into which he thought the person would be back? Should we put this on the August work session for an update on that? Because we definitely need to audit these businesses. Like, we know there's several that are operating as nightclubs in our city.
I would actually ask that we put it on on the August one because that'll kind of allow me to help push it. And I'm happy to, as I say, work with Ms. Smith if she wants to have a vendor to go out and start that process, on a cursory standpoint. The other thing is this. We certainly do have and I'll speak with the Chief Buchanan and Deputy Chief Popham about it. We have other things that are at our disposal that we've utilized successfully before, right? That we could utilize in some of these instances where they are a lot more aggravating circumstances. And I think we probably should look at employing some of those strategies. And if that's something that everybody will support.
Yeah, I think there have been a number of safety concerns raised by the locations that I won't name. And whatever we can do, as soon as we can do it, is definitely what I would advocate for. Also, as it relates to the GMA vendor, I believe as a member, we might get that service through them. And so if that's the case, we may want to see if we can save some cost on that, some funding on that, and work through our partner organization. But if there are other things that we can do, like there have been serious safety concerns. Occasionally, I won't say every week or whatever, but periodically, let's just say that, that I would advocate for doing whatever we can as soon as we can.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else? So August work session? Okay, next up, Councilmember Bailey, resources and supports to strengthen the permitting process.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. I just would like an update about the progress regarding improving the permitting process. I know that previously Director Smith spoke about 6 positions, perhaps an express counter consultant to support by looking at other cities, new computer system, perhaps a project manager, filling any unfilled positions. And I know that we have a new person on board, so thank you for doing that. So we're moving definitely in the right direction. So I just want like more of an update about those steps that you all were considering moving forward on.
Thank you,
Mr. King.
Councilman Bailey. You did an excellent job of giving a brief overview of that group of listings, and Kim is glad to see that be mentioned. And also on top of that, we have had some very robust meetings with our focus groups, which we're looking to finalize this month. We had our most recent one was held at the end of June. I think it was June 23rd, and Tyler was there. Tyler McSwain, raise your hand there, Tyler, who's our new senior planner on board. He was there hitting the ground running with us, along with Taylor Solomon there and Kimberly. Yeah, I mentioned you, Taylor. I'm sorry. But yeah, so we are excited. We look to bring some recommendations next month. They're finalizing the surveys, which are going out this week, and we're going to give you more information on that because we also want to give them to you all as a body to get your input before we finalize a list. So along with that, Turnkey Solutions has coordinated that with our planning team and our HR team to provide for a process of dissemination of that. And so you will be included within that process so we can incorporate your thoughts on what we have in that recommendation list. And so the goal I have is to, at the next work session, to have something that we can at least present to you as an initial step, that these are some areas that we can add into our, I guess, our tool belt to provide for improvements in the department. I did want us to visit a couple of locations as well. We hadn't set aside on where those may be as far as other cities that may also be having some ideas we can gather some thoughts from. So I'd like to have this on the agenda again in August, if it's okay with you, because I feel we'll have some results that we can provide for you then. Turnkey Solutions had provided us an initial overview of some of the recommendations that residents had put into that. But now with the surveys we're going out with, and we're going to get you your copy of surveys as well, I want to incorporate that into what we have and then come back with an update at the August work session, which incorporates what you said along with some other additional things we think can be very, very helpful.
Thank you so much for that feedback, because I know that this was mentioned in March. Director Smith spoke about these things in March, so that'll be great. In terms of the surveys, what's the plan for disseminating those?
You know, they gave me a very robust plan of action. There's going to be drop boxes, locations in our city park and recreation, police headquarters, city hall front, and planning and development, customer care. There's also going to be deliverables that we're going to have that we want to try, and this is what Turnkey Solutions has been working on with our team for a citizen survey communications plan, which will provide for social media dissemination, utility bills, inserts, emails, our website. It'll also be, as I mentioned, Dropbox with postcards going to have. There's going to be also opportunities for the HOA presidents to get a hold of that as well. I know we have a meeting coming up with them that's going to be coming up pretty soon. And then, so with all that, along with the dissemination locations, website, and the social media, we're hoping that that'll give us a very good round, I guess you could say, overall data analysis we can look at.
Thank you for doing that. The surveys, will it have information about the opinions as far as the permitting process? What type of content will be on the survey?
Well, they're going to ask you a lot of questions, some that'll deal on what do you see as some areas of concern, to get their feedback on that, and then also offer some potential recommendations. Some that you had mentioned, also we talked about a kiosk was one thing we talked about, the ombudsman, someone who will be there to help to work as a resource that's dedicated solely toward dealing with troubleshooting. That's all they will deal with. We looked at that as an option. And so there'll be some options that may be incorporated within that particular survey, but also opening it up so they'll allow you to be expressive enough to say that these are some additional ways in which we can provide for a more robust way of improving the planning and permitting process.
Do you anticipate like any recommended amendments for our budget to improve the permitting?
I would say there would be. Yeah, I can't put a number on that, but that would be definite. I would say just a matter of what we put as a prioritization of it. And there's a long list we had that we received from our initial meetings that, residents want to make sure, okay, that we were well-rounded enough. Some may get more priority than others, but we want to make sure that we look at what has been the most pressing needs and what is seen as the best solutions that we can get out of that to have the best impact.
Thank you so much. I yield, Madam Mayor.
All right, I don't see any other lights. Thanks for the update, Mr. King. Councilmember Bailey, do you want this item on a future work session agenda, or you'll put it on when needed?
August.
All right, August work session.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Next up, utility outage notifications. Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you. This item is on the agenda regarding the observation that during power outages, there's sometimes just a break in communication or just maybe a need for improvement in that regard. So the deputy city manager, I'm sorry, not the deputy city manager, the city manager would probably have more of an update on that if we could yield to him.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Councilmember Gordon. Appreciate that. I'm going to have our election department director, Sean Dow, come on up, along with Thomas Magnum, our assistant director for our election department. And they've got something that I want to give you an update on that would get to a great solution, I think, for some of the things we talked about. So I'm going to give you an overview of that. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. So I have Thomas Mango, my assistant director. So when outages occur, so tree falls on the line, you know, we get the SCADA alerts. SCADA is our technology that's inside the substations. It sends us alerts letting us know, hey, you have circuit, 101 out. So at that time, our linemen, myself, Thomas, and all the guys, well, all the supervisors within our department gets that alert. After that alert is sent, then IUC, which is the after hours call center, they get it and they dispatch linemen, or sometimes in the case, police, fire, whoever they need to dispatch. They get it, we come in, the guys come in, they survey to try and find the issue. After locating the issue, then we go into trying to reestablish service. Between that time of the guys trying to find what the issue was and us actually getting out the exact problem, because sometimes we just put out, hey, there is an outage. We know that there is an outage, but we won't know, as soon as that outage happens, exactly what happened. So once the guys get in, they get that going, then we put out that information to say, hey, a tree fell on Ben Hill. So we know that. But within the next couple of months, we're literally in the trial and training phase of the second part of the AMI project. So the AMI, the hard infrastructure, the hardware, that's 100% completed. We're moving on to the communication aspect where residents will be able to check their bills. And once there's outages, it'll send those messages out to residents, just specifically who's out of power. I guess sometimes the way it's done now, it's not really the best in that it's not targeted to the folks who just need to know that they're out of power. So as soon as that happens, it'll send you an alert, like any of the other power companies. You get an alert on your phone or email, whichever you sign up for. So, customers will be able to know within real time, like, hey, I know my power is out and, this is the approximate restoration time. So that's literally, today we had a meeting and we're setting up the customer care and the electric department trainings and that type of stuff.
Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you. So my question was a bit more specific to how we can better, and you touched on it a little bit there, but wondering if I think you're talking about using AMI, the next phase of it, to kind of provide that alert system. Or intermittently, are we allowed to use, and this may not be a question you can answer, but maybe police or fire, if we can use code red. The reason why I'm asking is because two reasons. Not everyone is on social media. And so if you're home, you're going to know. If you're at home or if your business is open, you're going to know that the power is out instantly. But what we don't know is any ETAs. I know you're kind of slow to give out ETAs because you may not know what the problem actually is or how long it'll take, especially if a tree has fallen, because the tree has to be cut up and removed and then you proceed with your work. But I think some of the calls that I received a couple of weeks ago, they understood completely about power outages. It just happens and we can't control that. I think that there was a breakdown in possible ETAs or anything, because when you're talking about businesses, they don't know, well, should we just close for the rest of the day or should we just kind of wait it out? And so there was some limbo there. And also for some residents, there was one lady that was posting online, same thing. She was on social media, fortunately, but there are a lot of residents, like I know a few of our residents in Ward D, they have cell phones that they never use and they have landlines, but if the power's out, they can't use the landline because it's electric, because it's cordless. So just wondering if we had another layer of communication is what I'm asking about, that might assist us better with outages, notifications, or even just kind of updates and ETAs when we get them.
So the possibility of using code red from an electrical standpoint, I'm not 100% with, only because code red I'm not 100% sure, but from my little talkings, I don't think it can be targeted in terms of, like, even if we try to do it by ward, right? There's circuits that run between different wards. So even if I'm saying, hey, circuit 1, out of Ben Hill is out of power, right? And that serves, and I push out that code red alert, someone who's in Ward D might say, hey, but I'm not out of power. Why am I getting it? But when we just, we are pushing it out in terms of, it'll just be hard to figure out how to get all the customers who's on this circuit to just push out a code red message, to just specifically to them.
Right.
So.
But the AMI system would be more targeted.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. The
Okay.
AMI
As
system
long as we
is
have
solely
something,
based
yeah.
on meters. So
Okay.
it'll be specifically targeted.
Okay, I like that, because you're right. You're getting text messages all day during a particular outage and you don't live in that area. That would be probably a little annoying. But that's what I was asking, just for another layer of communication, because not everyone is on social media. A great number of people are, but not everyone, especially a lot of our senior citizens and other residents who just don't utilize social media. So, but they will call us about the outages. So we're just trying to find a way to be more cohesive with it.
Sean, did you tell the timeline on that too? Because I think it's good that we had this discussion, because we started this in 2018 and we were talking about that today. So we're finally at a point where he's fully deployed, and he didn't want to get I know he didn't want to go to a certain date, but he's really close. So that if you want to sign up on it, we can do it. We're going to get it out there, let people know. You sign up on it, you'll get notified immediately when there's an alert. And it's an opt-in approach. So it's not forced on you, but you have an option to do that. Businesses will, and our residents. And I think I know he didn't say time, but he didn't want to say that, but he's close. He's real close.
Correct. So I kind of kicked myself before, because so this was supposed to be finished years ago in that, but the system that sits on top of the AMI system, it's called Utility Hawk, but they physically have to write code and script to match our ERP systems. So the two different times that we've switched systems, they were like 80 to 85% completed and had to start all over writing script again. So we're real close, like more than 95% completed. And it's just like from a training aspect, testing phase to make sure all the bugs and that type of stuff is not there. Remember, we did a test before, and some of the water, the decimal for the water was wrong. So when we did that test, lucky, great thing that we was in the testing phase. It came back like this customer had like 1 million gallons of water usage or something like that, where we know that's almost impossible. So, just making sure we got all the bugs fixed, but it will be coming within the next, yeah. I would say like within the next 3 months. But we are doing testing and training like currently.
I have something else, but if he wants to go. So my last question is, before you're ready for that rollout, is there a way that we can definitely have some level of campaign go out so that residents can know that, hey, this is a feature you can opt into, so that, folks are signing up and we're encouraging people to get connected?
Correct. Yes. So we're working on that with the communications director. We had a couple meetings within the last 2 weeks, and just kind of working on an overall plan to the different events that we have in the city to get people to enroll and sign up for the utility hub.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Appreciate you both.
Councilmember Butler.
Thank you. So, Sean, I'm not going to be as forgiving as my colleague. I think they're being too nice. It's too many power outages, period. And what happens is when people call, they get a Spanish voice. And I've reported this problem more than once. And how do we not know that it's a Spanish voice calling and receiving those power outage notices, and nobody's changed it? That's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. That's not a request for an answer. That's get it fixed, period. What I want to look for is, I need innovation. How do we solve this problem? We know that this problem is from trees. We've tried to do some things to mitigate that. But I want some creativity. Okay, let's think outside of the box as to how do we solve this problem. I talked to you about burying a part of power lines. Wait, let me finish. You told me it was too expensive. So figure out, how do we get the money to do part of the trouble problems, or the problem areas? How do we get these tree situations? Because sometimes it's a car accident and we can't mitigate that. That just happens. But I have been here since 1984, and we've had more power outages in the last 24 months than we've had in 30 years. And part of that may be trees and their maturation and their dying. But let's be innovative in our approach, because we've had power outages 2 or 3 times a week on our side of town. And it's ridiculous when the people call you one week and this lady still speaking Spanish. Then you call back the next week, she's still speaking Spanish. How come we don't know the lady speaking Spanish? So I don't need a response. I just want you to contemplate that and just think about it. And then let's figure out how we can support you to make it happen. Because that's just poor customer service. And that may not even be your department. But I'm putting everybody on notice. It's too many. Let's be innovative, and let's handle the small things, like the lady speaking English when the people call to report a power out. That's it.
So I will say that we have Hispanic and non-Hispanic residents in the city of East Point. So it is a problem if Spanish is the only language that is being spoken when people are calling. I'm hoping that we have an English and Spanish option. because we have, I think, about 9 to 10% of our community that are Hispanic and speak Spanish. And I think that would be a forward way and a really demonstrable way to show our intentionality around being inclusive. But we need to have multiple languages, right? And so if that is the case and it's only Spanish, hopefully there's going to be an option 1 English and an option 2, or option 2 Espanol, or however we're going to do it, because we need to ensure that all of our residents are able to get the information they need in the language that they can when we can provide it. So we all see the constant complaints and concerns about the number of outages that we have. And I think when you did the town hall meeting about power, I feel like that was last year.
Yes.
Top 3, trees, dead animals, and accidents. I don't think we get a notification when trees fall, but we have talked about with the previous GIS director, is there a way to GIS these trees within the city to determine those that might be aging or leaning that are in power lines? And when that conversation comes up, we also, Councilmember Shropshire and Cook have been talking about for a while, the whole, how can we deal with the trees? Can we cut them? I've talked about it as well, but it's on private property. But, you know, when they fall,
Correct.
they become public property, and then we go cut them up anyway, right? So, I mean, I do agree that what can we do if we know that trees are a large part of our outages? You know, is there a way? I know we even increased our tree trimming staff and that kind of stuff, but when they fall, we don't have much notice, but there are some that are leaning quite visibly. And how do we deal with those, even if they're on private property? Because when it falls and takes out the line, I'm sure it's more costly
Definitely.
to cut it up, restore service, and repair those electric lines than it would be to enter into whatever kind of arrangement, whatever we have to do with the property owner to take those, to have those trees removed prior to falling.
So about, I want to say 3, maybe 4, I could be wrong, but it was definitely before I went on military training. We presented an item and we already, we got the contract. We already have it signed. We approved, I think it was for like 800,000 to look at the circuits that give us the most issues to try and bury those power lines. Now that 800,000 is gonna be, you know, like a drop in the bucket, but we're gonna start someplace. So that's already been moving. So we are doing something to try and, you know, combat, you know, the trees falling on the lines. So there is gonna be, I think it's in 2 weeks is a kickoff meeting between us and a contractor to come in and kind of help us out with some plans, some drawings, some underground design to put some of the stuff underground. Now, we won't be able to do like entire circuits. That just won't be feasible right now. So we're gonna look at, go back, you know, within the last 2 years, where had the most trees fall, and, you know, take that section and put it underground and kind of keep moving along. And every year, just kind of appropriate some money to keep doing it until we get to that point where, you know, most of the lines are underground, at least the main 3-phase lines. The single-phase lines, we're not going to worry too much about, because those, you know, more so take us the least time to get back up in the air and fix, versus the main lines coming out of the substations and, you know, going all over the city. But that project is underway.
Councilmember Shropshire and Councilmember Butler.
Thank you. I know a couple of years ago, maybe about 1 or 2 years, we talked about providing tree cutting service to the residents. And I think you all were going to come up with a cost for that. Because if you go down Hetland, there are quite a few trees that's actually leaning over still in the street. And so not only is it a danger to the lines, but it's also a danger to people who are driving, because with the high winds that we've had, they could fall. And here lately, trees have been falling. So maybe that's something that we need to look into again, cutting, because we do know it's private property and you can't go on there. And a lot of trees fall from private property because they get old and residents just don't have the funds to cut them down. But if we came up with a plan or something like we were looking into about 2 years ago to help with that cost, to see what we can do to cut those trees down that's in danger to falling on the power lines. So is that something, whatever happened with that idea?
So I believe we presented it back to the mayor and council, but I think it was kind of left in discussion because the two options that we came up with, I think both were of some sort of cost to the citizen. And I think we didn't want to venture down with, the citizens. But so right now, right now we have about, I think it's between 450 to 500,000 budgeted in the tree trimming and tree clearance departments, right? And that figure could easily triple, with us trying to cut down those trees. But, I'm willing to take any suggestions, anything that you guys may have, any ideas how we can collaborate and, get some of these trees down, because trust and believe, please understand this. I hate outages. I don't like them at all. Like, if I could prevent outages, there would be none in the world. So I don't like them. But, unfortunately, they happen, and we're going to just keep trying our best to combat them.
Councilmember Vogt.
Thank you. You should have lived. You're going to spend $800,000 to start burying power lines?
Correct.
So this is how you pay for it, all right? If while we're burying power lines, if we bury dark fiber to go with that, it can be done. I'm not saying stuff that I don't know, but we can pay for that using the dark fiber that we incorporate with laying the lines and the fiber at the same time. It's something that I want you guys to consider. Manager King, could you have him and the IT department investigate that? Because it's something that we can do, and we can start to fund that process with the monies the state has available with broadband exclusion. Especially, it's a whole formula that can be done. But we've talked about this for years as to when we lay that fiber and we offer that to our businesses, then we can monetize that. And if we were to do our fiber, then it could reduce our telecommunications cost. So if we start to think about those things, this is how we could begin to pay for them and then grow that process.
So I guess you'll say I should have started with that also, because so me and Maurice were already in talks of he's doing the grant right now to try and get a grant for the fiber around the city and for all our parks and that type of stuff.
Yeah, I know about it. That's my initiative. I've been working on it forever.
So me and him, we're in talks. So when we get these contractors in, even if we're not ready to actually put the fiber in, we're putting the conduit in the streets for it already. So it'll be there. We don't have to go back and dig up the streets again to do that. So
beautiful. And just for a point of clarification, the only message that is received when people call about the power is Spanish. There's no one, there's no two. I've gotten several calls, people calling about, they call to report an outage and the entire message is in Spanish. And I don't think that's your department, but it's something that we need to get addressed.
No, well, I'll definitely take a look at that, but that is my department, so I'll take a look at it.
Thank you, please. Thank you.
And again, let's not get rid of Spanish. Let's have an English and Spanish option. Do you remember when council approved the $800,000 to bury the lines?
Uh, I'm not quite sure. It was maybe a couple council meetings ago. So this had to been in June.
This before you went.
Correct. So I left the chain
I would say,
May.
Had to
Yes.
been
May
So
this
May
year.
of this year?
Yes.
yes.
Okay. All righty. Any other comments or questions, Councilmember Gordon? All right. Thank you so much. Next up, Mr. King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to have Kimberly Smith. Where is she? She may have stepped out for a moment, but I can talk about this one in particular. The Ben Hill Road one, we are currently working on the agreement. We had received a development agreement with the Microsoft team. I know John McKinley is here from Microsoft as well. Thank you for being here today. Our legal team is now working on their side of it because they have to incorporate their response. And so we're looking at that right now. And then we'll be having another update meeting with Microsoft once we have our legal team's comments on it and incorporation of language in that as well. And so what we're going to ask on this item is that it be deferred for another 30 days minimum, so as to give the attorneys time to finish their review. I've got a meeting scheduled in upcoming days with our internal team. The plan department is moving forward on the permitting aspect of it, in terms of that aspect as we move forward on the agreement side. And so the goal would be that we have something of a draft that we'll have forward, hopefully by the time we get into the August meeting. So I'm going to ask that this item be deferred while that goes on at this time. Madam Mayor, Council.
Hey, August work session. Mr. King, is that okay?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I want this going to August work session.
All right, you got that, Madam Deputy Clerk. Next up is the comprehensive plan update. I feel like we already had public hearings on this, but I'm not sure, so we can get updated on the process. I know we approved the initial draft, and so Mr. King, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have Taylor Solomon, Tyler McSwain, and our Planning Community Development Director, Kimberly Smith, here to give an overview of this item.
Good evening. Thank you, City Manager King, Madam Mayor, fellow council. In reference to the comprehensive plan update rewrite 2022. Next slide. This item is known as case number 2022 CPA-001-01. It is a citywide document, and it is the city's comprehensive plan update. The city is the applicant. It is a request for the city of East Point's mayor and council to hold public hearing regarding the adoption of the city's 2022 comprehensive 5-year plan update. The draft has been reviewed and approved by the Atlanta Regional Commission, as well as the Georgia Department of Community Affairs, AKA DCA. Just going briefly over the process that we've undergone over the last year and a half. There was a community engagement process and component where we met with the project team, which was Atlanta Regional Commission. We also had a steering committee that was put together. We had 3 steering committee meetings that happened over a course of March of 22, July of 2022, and September of 2022. We also had an additional set of steering committee meetings back in October. We also held a public open house back in August of last year, 2022, and had a public open house actually here in this room, where the Atlanta Regional Commission set up different stations which went over the demographics, which went over some of the goals and accomplishments, the community outreach issues and opportunities. They were spread throughout the room, and the community got the opportunity to see all of the updates over the last 5 years, and it was well attended. It was a well-attended event. Some of the continuing goals that are included in the 2022 plan from our 2017 plan, briefly, we're going to be moving forward with our comprehensive plan study, using the data that was collected from that time and just updating it to present time. We're also moving forward with a strong public art and cultural connection. The city has, since this time or within this time period, we have a cultural and public art department, which is up and running and doing very well. We have also goals that are moving forward just to fund key infrastructure, and we talk about that all the time, dealing with our permitting support moving forward, and also integrating the city's transportation plan, which was updated during this time frame. Something interesting that came out of the community engagement process were budgets. So each person that was in attendance at the open house was provided for a certain amount or allotted a certain amount of, let's just say, monopoly money. And so there were different boxes that they were able money in. And as you see on the list here, it was separated by arts and culture, code enforcement, community aesthetics, economic development, health, preventative and access to care, parks, public safety, senior services, trails, and transportation. So with all of those different categories, as people went around, there were different boxes for each of the categories, and people allotted $100, $50 for whichever category they were most interested in. And if you see from the chart, safety was first, scoring 19%. They got 19% of the funds that were allotted. So that's very, very important based on the group that attended as far as budget and where they want to see money spent within the city. Public safety being number one. The second one is the health and preventative access, which came in at 16% of the funds that were spent. And so it goes on and so forth, but it was just a really interesting exercise to see how the citizens would like to see funds throughout the city. Some of the new areas of the comprehensive plan that are included in the new plan is the equity plan. Also contributing to our chapter 4, contributing plans and studies. And those are studies and plans that that the city has undergone over the last 5 years. And I'll talk a little bit detail on the slides moving forward. The equity plan and statement. This was a very, very long body of work that started back in 2019 when the city adopted an equity resolution, which committed the city to spending a lot of resources and doing research towards how can the city become more equitable and inclusive. And we went on to actually develop an equitable growth and inclusion strategic plan in 2021. Also, in 2021, partnered with Morehouse School of Medicine to advance health equity in East Point, and that's an ongoing project, which I believe is funded over $1.3 million over the next 3 years. And with that being said, and working with the Equity Community Advisory Board from 2022, they recommended an equity statement, which has been placed in the study. I believe it's on page 8. This is the equity statement that is included in our comprehensive plan. It is very new, and we're very proud of the statement. I mentioned contributing plans and studies. We've had many, many studies over the last 5 years from 2017 to present, and I'll just read a few of them. Some of them have won awards over the years, which is very nice for the city. But included in our comprehensive plan is our Metro Atlanta Housing Strategy Plan. Also from a housing category is the Fulton County Consolidated Plan and Action Plan, which was adopted in 2021. We have 4 transportation plans and land use plans that are included in our comprehensive plan. And I like to state that the 2050 Southern Fulton County Comprehensive Transportation Plan actually received awards and accolades from the state. Our Willingham Corridor study we worked on in 2022, which is going to be an integral part of how we recommend projects that come into our industrial areas, specifically the Willingham Corridor area. The Economic Development Plan is also inclusive to this new document, as well as the Aerotropolis Atlanta Blueprint, which is known now as Blueprint 2.0. The natural resources section is the Finding the Flint initiative, which is also inclusive in this document. And we have quality of life, health, and equity documents, which are listed there. And I'd like to mention that the city's Agriculture Plan 2021 also won the Visionary Planning Award from ARC in 2021. Land use updates. If you're able to see the map that's showing, this is our business park and industrial zone properties in the city. And if you look at the red rings that are showing on the map, what that is showing is different segments and places within the city of East Point where our industrial zone land uses are immediately adjacent to residential. It's showing mostly in wards A and B specifically. So the city in 2021 created and adopted a new zoning category called mixed use commercial industrial. And this zoning district has been an integral part. It's been incorporated into the 3 town center sub areas of downtown Lawrence Street and Warehouse District. And it's going to be very integral to how we, or how the city is portrayed as developing in our industrial areas, specifically and intentfully protecting our residential communities in the city. The Willingham Corridor study, this is the corridor character area, and it encompasses the headwater gateways. It shows all of the ways that are within the city, our light industrial neighborhood, hotel industrial, our Sylvan Road transitional area, which is also a gateway into the city, corporate hotel and industrial transitional and residential. Those are the different corridor character areas within the Willingham corridor, and they have been incorporated into our comprehensive plan. The Planning Commission staff recommended approval of this document to move forward, but Planning Commission also recommended approval. They had a few for the document, and if you all have any questions, I'll take them now. But Planning Commission did recommend approval. We'll go over those comments.
I'm just reading some, and I know we adopted, I was trying to find the resolution that we adopted regarding, it was the ARC Green Initiative that Councilmember Robinson brought forward. Was it mentioned in here? Because I know that's one of the environmental things that we're working on. But I noticed that was the first comment, so I just started reading those. I think it might be helpful if you read them, especially because we have people online who won't be able to read
Okay,
this, so if you could just
sure.
read each one.
Okay, so for Planning Commission's approval with the following comments, the first comment is the city to make every effort to use and require sustainable and environmentally friendly infrastructure building materials that have the longest lifespan and highest durability as per industry standard. This is dealing with infrastructure and what type of piping is used for our water sewer system. The next comment, to preserve existing housing stock and provide new housing opportunities with architecture that integrates new styles and complements existing structures. This was speaking to our infill ordinance, which we're going to be redoing our rezoning ordinance really soon. So that comment was speaking to that specifically. The next comment, the city to protect gateways into the city with approaching policies and tools to create inviting and distinct corridors that are welcoming and to provide for a foundation that's thriving. This is speaking to our gateways, specifically Sylvan Road, Willingham, and several other gateways and entryways and corridors into the city, the Main Street gateway that transverses through some some industrial communities. The fourth comment, the city to pursue opportunities and resources to develop policies that remediate brownfields and not allow uses that knowingly contaminate the soil. That's an environmental comment that I think that the comprehensive plan currently embraces. And then the last comment was very specific to the equity statement. There was a proposal and recommendation to add quality of life equity to the second paragraph of the equity statement and strike the word health. And the intent of that, based on the comment, was to be inclusive of all types of equity, whether it be health or economic or what have you. So they were specifically wanting to say quality of life equity, which would be inclusive of all types of equity possible. The other comment in reference to the equity statement is in the second paragraph, second sentence, which is to replace small business community with just business community, not to focus on small, but all business communities. And those were the comments from Planning Commission. And I'll take any
Thanks.
questions.
I don't see any lights. I think to the recommendation that we remove health, I think advancing health equity is a focus within the city, so I don't mind adding quality of life and keeping health. I think it's also important to call out the intentionality of this council and our city to support small businesses. So any way that we can include that, as well as all businesses, and while helping small business, a way to be inclusive. Like, I get what they're saying, not to suggest that we're only focusing on small businesses, but I think it's important to mention specifically small businesses, entrepreneur, like that small business ecosystem. You mentioned when you talked about the brownfields remediation, you said that's not in the comprehensive plan right now?
It is.
Oh, I thought you said it was stricken or removed from the comprehensive plan.
No.
Okay, all right. And I still was trying to find the resolution, but I can't remember what it is. It's the ARC program that we adopted a resolution to be a part
Green
of
communities.
ARC Green Communities, I think it is. So I think we should include that from a sustainability perspective.
Okay, we'll find it and add it.
Anyone else? This is, I know we did a public hearing for pre-transmittal. Do we need to do one?
On Monday.
On Monday, so it's already been advertised.
Yes.
And then my other question is, has this been shared at the Development Authority's retreat? We talked about the importance of ensuring that the BIDA board members, the Downtown Development Authority members, and the Building Authority members receive a copy of it to be able to, I mean, it's been out there for a while, and when we talked about it at meetings, some were already aware of it. We know it's online, but just to make sure that we followed up with that discussion to make sure that they have received it and encourage them to provide any input or recommendations as well.
We can definitely send it out to them. I want to say there was a member of the BIDA board on the steering committee, so they may have shared it with them, but I'll have to follow up and confirm that.
Because they were also asking timeline. So if we could share with them that it'll be on for public hearing on Monday, here it is. We know they may already have it or something like that. That'll be helpful.
Will do. Thank you.
Councilmember Butler.
Yes, thank you. Kim, do you have a copy of the equity statement in which the planning commission recommended the changes? Is it readily available to you so that we can see the changes to see if we agree or disagree with what they propose?
It was those two changes, and they were specific to the paragraph.
Yeah, that's what
That
I'm
I
asking for,
stated.
the paragraph.
Yeah, you had a slide in the presentation that has the equity statement on it.
Can you, yes.
So I think it's the second paragraph. East Point will prioritize health equity. Is that what they were referring to?
So, yes, the second paragraph in the equity statement where it says health equity, they're merely just making a recommendation to strike health, the word health, and to
And I
replace
think
it.
we should do
Replace it with
quality of life.
quality of life equity.
I think we should say East Point will prioritize quality of life and health equity through policies. I mean, we're receiving over $1.1 million grant from the federal government through Morehouse School of Medicine to advance health equity in the city of East Point. So I have no objection to them suggesting that we add quality of life there, but I think we keep health equity.
I'm still reviewing. What was the other statement? Where
And the
business-
second comment was in the second paragraph, second sentence,
Yeah, I see.
fourth paragraph. Second sentence. The diverse perspective and experiences of East Point residents, employees, the small business community. So it was speaking specifically to the small business community, and just to strike the word small.
It would seem to me business community is more inclusive and represents equity.
Correct. That's what the intent was.
That makes sense. Anything else?
Now, I'm still reviewing. So why wouldn't it make sense to say East Point will prioritize equity through policies that reinforce and promote access to healthy food, safe and affordable housing? It seems like it is healthy. It's being reiterated here as opposed to, it seems more like a grammatical thing than actually contextual. Because what we're doing is defining what that equity looks like. Then in the next sentence, it says health equity will be achieved when, and it goes on to say.
I think for the city over the last 5 years, health equity specifically has been very on the forefront of a lot of policies that have moved forward, a lot of programs that have moved forward in the city. And so it was very intentful to have health in there.
So that's why I'm raising the question, is because they felt it's strong enough to make these revisions.
But I think their revision didn't deal with health. The second healthy statement, they want to add quality of life. So they're suggesting adding language, quality of life. And then they recommended excluding health equity.
Where would they want to put quality of life instead?
East Point will prioritize quality of life.
Equity.
Priority, say it again, Ms. Smith?
The city of East Point will prioritize quality of life equity.
Well, why wouldn't it just be East Point will prioritize quality of life and then have these recommendations? Because it's listing what the quality of life would be. Is that what it's like we're trying to interpret the Constitution here. They have what they want to say, and it's all about the wording. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll make up my mind once I've done it.
So I also want to remind us that the East Point Community Advisory Board, along with Morehouse School of Medicine, worked on this statement. And so this is a statement that was drafted through input from residents and other key stakeholders around the work that we're doing on the up to $1.1 million grant to advance health equity in East Point. So I think their desire of adding quality of life, there's no objection to that. But also, East Point will prioritize quality of life and health equity because that was the recommendation of the Community Advisory Board that is working with Morehouse School of Medicine on the Advancing Health Equity Grant. And so what will happen, I think maybe, I don't know how you want to do it as we move forward with the public hearing on Monday. They've made some other recommendations. There didn't seem to be any objection to those. So if there's a way to add those so they're a part of the document that we're reviewing on Monday, and then prior to adopting, we can have further discussion if need be around that as council moves forward to adopt, because I think the desire from staff is that we make a decision on Monday after the public hearing as it relates to this. Also adding the ARC Green Community, I can't remember the name of the resolution that we
Green
adopted,
Communities Initiative.
to be a part of on that sheet where you list the number of the different things. And I think there was a bullet or subcategory for environment. And then I'll look at it as well more through the week.
We will make those adjustments.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I understand exactly what your point of view is, Madam Mayor, and there are different points of view. And it's important to look at all of them, no matter which committee it comes from, or the community, or a member on this diocese.
Any other comments? All right, so this will go on the agenda for public hearing and decision on Monday.
All right. Thank you.
Next item is item number 14. I have a question. I'm a little confused because I see 2 contracts attached to this action item to approve $40,000 in furniture. So given the amount, was there a solicitation done? And are we actually approving one of the contracts or both of the contracts? Are we getting furniture from both companies? I'm a little confused by what we're actually being asked to do.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Kimberly, come on up. I'm going to have Kimberly Prost, our municipal court administrator, come forward. This is under a state contract that it's being procured under. And it is, I believe, just one. Yeah, and also our city attorney can speak to it as well. So I believe, Kim, you can talk about whether it's one, I think it's one company, though, that's getting the furniture. Is that right? Okay, you can talk a little bit about that.
Yes, Madam Mayor, it is.
Which one? Because there's 2 contracts attached to the agenda item. Unless I'm reading the agenda item wrong.
It's my understanding it should have been the first one that CAT received.
Was there a solicitation done for this, or is this a pre-approved vendor? It's $40,000, so I think anything over $25,000 requires a solicitation unless this is a vendor that we get furniture from.
Well, it's under a state contract that it's being procured under.
Okay.
And it should be one contract that was attached to that.
So there is a HON contract that's redacted and a Jasper contract.
The Jasper Act may be for the chairs. I think either the chairs or the furniture specifically for the judge's office, because what she required and what she asked for was something bigger that one specific company did not have.
So I don't have an objection to putting this on consent if it's under a state contract, but I think we have to be clear about what we're approving. So generally we approve vendors and then later we approve a contract. I'm not saying that we can't do them both now, but are we approving both contracts so that when it comes before me, I can make sure it's already been approved by council? So are we going with one vendor or two vendors? And if the action item for consent, I don't think anyone else has any questions. Let me see if any on in the action item for this, if we just can indicate what we're doing. Like this just says to buy buy furniture, but there's two contracts attached. So we're actually, I think the ask is to actually approve two contracts.
I believe it is, Madam Mayor, because there's a state contract, but there's a separate one for a separate.
For a different set of furniture, like I said, that the judge required for her office.
And I understand. Mr. King, do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, yes, Madam Mayor. I
Okay,
do
so
understand
does
what you're saying.
anyone have any objection to it going on consent with that? We just need to make clear what we're approving.
Yes, we'll have to, I've talked to city attorney. We'll make sure that we revise the language so that it'll specify both contracts being listed, including a state contract and a separate one for the judge's chambers.
And if we could indicate the amounts for each.
And the
in
amounts for
action
each.
item.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a problem going to consent as long as it has those things. I'll rely on Mr. King and the city attorney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We sure can.
Yes, ma'am. And there was some language in there that I'm cleaning up on one of them. I didn't see the second one, but I'll just clean both of them up, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Next item is item number 16. So I have some questions on this. I looked at the procurement evaluations sheet and the company with the highest score is not being recommended. It says it's for brownfield assessments, but it looks like it's only for one site, the fire station on Washington Road. I think it's 3969 Washington Road. So why is the staff recommending the vendor that didn't score the highest? And
Come on
is
up.
this just for one assessment for the fire station? As the initial proposal, the RFP suggests that it's for like ongoing assessments, but then in the sites, it only lists one site.
Maceo, come on up. I'll have Maceo Rogers give you a little detailed overview of this one as well.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Maceo Rogers, Director for the Department of Economic Development. And let me just find the page. So primarily, the point differential with respect to the responders to the solicitation came down to the cost. Stantec is actually the company that is providing or was providing the work before. And the cost between the highest scored provider was about $10,000 different. And because Stantec is the company that is already providing the work. They acquired the company Cardinal Inc. During the 3-year process or time frame. And because we asked for a year extension to the contract because we didn't spend the money within the 3-year time frame, the EPA granted us that 1-year extension, which actually expires September 31st of this year. And at the same time, they, because they had acquired the company, they wanted to, they weren't in sync with their processes. So they asked for to do the process over. So we granted them that request, and Stantec acquired Cardinal Inc. last year. And they are the awarded company after we did this process over.
So I'll just ask my other questions offline, because on experience, the other company, I don't know any of these companies, but on experience, the other companies score higher than Stantec. And on project approach and plan, they score higher. They both scored the same on qualifications and experience of personnel. And you just said that Stantec was given the opportunity to resubmit. So I'll talk to you all offline about this. Can we put this on the agenda in case I have some more questions?
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. King, and thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even check. Councilmember Butler.
Do you have any vendors on this list for which we do business with already?
What's that, Councilman?
I'm sorry. Do we have any businesses on this list for which we do business with already?
Yes, sir. Stantec.
Are there any other businesses on here we do business with?
I believe, well, not with respect to my department, but I believe the city has done work with United Consulting. And I'm not sure about the CHA or DCJ Global.
And so you awarded the contract to Stantec?
That is correct. They were doing the work before.
I'm sorry, explain that to me.
So Stantec acquired Cardinal Consulting, which was a smaller company.
And we're doing business with them?
That is correct. And so we ended up going with the same company that was doing the work.
Thank you, Mr. King, and Attorney Williams, expect the communication from me. Next up is item number 17, and I asked the city manager and spoke with the director. I think this, for the record, we just need to clear this up, because on the agenda, the documents attached to the agenda, it actually says it's an emergency procurement. And my understanding is that it's actually not emergency procurement, that the solicitation was done. And so, Mr. King, I'll turn it over to you. I see Mr. Reeves at the podium.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll let Jeff go ahead from there. Thanks, Jeff.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. First of all, I'd like to apologize for some of the things that were in the agenda item that I intended on pulling. I actually, thinking about this, I was having some problems trying to get some stuff downloaded, so I believe I missed that. But what we have is this is a company that we have chosen to do our self-evaluation transition plan for our city ADA compliance, which will cover all of our city ADA compliances that we have in the city streets, buildings, employees, and everything. So this item had been sent out twice for solicitation when we didn't have any bidders come back. based on our procurement. And so what we did at this time, while you did see there was emergency procurement, if you look on the date, it was May and June when the signatures started getting passed around. At that time, we were still waiting for GDOT to give us our compliance so we can be able to go out for grants and bids with GDOT, which this would have been a part of it, but GDOT did give us that compliance, so we are in compliance with GDOT. So that's why this process initially went out as an emergency procurement, because we were trying to get it done so GDOT can see that we have it. So we do have that approval from GDOT, and we're good to go.
But you said it went out for solicitation twice before that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I
This,
get what
yeah, it started way back in 2022. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then since no responses, we
So we good with GDOT. So since we didn't have responses, we went with our on-call engineering departments that handle this kind of stuff. So that's why we have them.
All right, I don't see any other lights on, so we can put this on consent, but if you could just make whatever revisions.
Yes, ma'am, I will.
To the
agenda item.
Agenda, yep.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, we already did item number 18, 19, annual surplus auction. Mr. King.
Madam Mayor, I want to move this item to the August work session. I need to have a resolution attached to this item. And so I'm going to pull this one for this meeting. It's nothing wrong with it. I just need to have a resolution drafted by the manager for this item. So I'm going to push this to the August work session.
Okay, next item is council discussion and possible action on renaming Cheney Street to Bal-Ethnic Way. Mr. King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to allow Christopher Swain, our arts coordinator, who's going to come up and give a brief overview of this item. Chris?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Christopher Swain. Yes, I'm here this evening in response to having changing the name of Cheney Street to Bal-Ethnic Way. Now, before I begin this, I want to let you know this, not speaking of the whole of Cheney Street. Cheney Street it runs north and south through East Point, 1 block over from City Hall. It begins at Washington Road and it culminates at the end in a cul-de-sac at Normanberry Drive. But so the area we're really looking at changing the name of is from the corner of West Forest Avenue into the cul-de-sac, which is actually where Bal-Ethnic is located. So to give just for a point of reference and give a little history, Bal-Ethnic Dance Company was founded in January 1990 by Waverly Lucas II and Nina Gilreath. It became Metropolitan Atlanta's first and only professional African-American founded ballet company. And the second professional Black ballet company in the country since the 1968 founding of the Dance Theater of Harlem by the legendary Arthur Mitchell and Karen Shook, a company for which both Waverly and Nina both danced. Bal-Ethnic began its residency in East Point in 1992 at the O'Quillian School, which is now the East Point Kip South Fulton Academy, before it was purchased by Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. Through sweat equity and community engagement, Bal-Ethnic started the thrust of teaching dances of all of the support personnel of the arts institutions from this location. Bal-Ethnic resided in that location until 1997. Due to the decline of the neighborhood, Bal-Ethnic accepted the opportunity to move to its current location in 1997. From those humble roots, Bal-Ethnic has created world-class dancers and been afforded world-class opportunities, including rehearsing for the Cultural Olympiad at its East Point headquarters. Their performances in the 1996 Cultural Olympiad were even reviewed in the New York Times. Dancers have gone on to achieve national recognition for their work with Bal-Ethnic and other companies. In fact, a 2022 Bal-Ethnic performance at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. as part of the Reframing the Narrative performance series presenting 3 iconic Black ballet companies. Bal-Ethnic is proud to be a much-needed artistic and economic driving force in this region. The trend continues that many students and visitors to Bal-Ethnic travel from outside the region. Aware of the dearth of affordable local arts venues, Bal-Ethnic believes that providing a safe space at their studio and outsourced stage to consume artistic expression is of paramount importance as they work to alleviate some of the angst in the region brought on by the recent pandemic and racial strife issues. To that end, Bal-Ethnic continues to build its reach in East Point and beyond by enhancing and improving its space on Cheney Street. The current plan for Bell Ethnic is to embark upon a strategic plan by beginning its capital campaign to renovate its current space. And I also want to note that Bell Ethnic is the oldest art institution in the city of East Point. They've been here now for 33 years. And that their annual productions of The Leopard Tail and Urban Nutcracker are trademark productions that they do regularly. And I also want to let you know that for this endeavor, of course, it's something I'm bringing forth, but I've already, it's something I actually will have to do in concert with planning because it's a planning initiative to change street names. So I've already had conversations with Ms. Smith about that process as well. So I'm coming to you this evening looking for support to change the street name, pretty much using the same methodology you use when you change Harold Sheets Parkway to Freedom Parkway.
Oops, Councilman Butler.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Swain, does Bell Ethnic own the property?
Yes, they do.
And are they going to do something to improve it, I think?
Yes, as a matter of fact, they have plans to expand their campus to take up a large part of that cul-de-sac. They actually own 4 properties in that cul-de-sac on that one block that we're speaking of right now.
So if we were to rename the street, they're going to be there.
Oh, yes, they'll definitely be there. They'll be there from now on. This is bigger than just about a business. This is about representation. See, because recently they had a meeting down there, and I went, and there were some young ladies there who danced with them this summer, and they recently had a chance to travel to Toronto, Canada, where they performed. It wasn't until they went to Toronto, Canada, and danced with dancers from all over the world that they recognized that their bodies don't look like the other girls, that they're different. So this is about letting other girls and guys who look like them know that it's possible to have a career in this art form.
Thank you very much. And so my final question, so it will go through the normal process where you will notify the neighbors and that type of process?
Correct. And when I checked, I think there are about 10 properties on that street, 4 of which are controlled by Bell Ethnic.
Thank you.
Councilmember Renee.
I am so excited about this, and thank you for bringing the history to us. I am going to support this 100%. I thank you so much. This is a great opportunity to recognize the history of the city. Thank you.
Councilmember Shropshire.
Thank you, Chris, for bringing this about Bell Ethnic. I talk with Nina and Waverly a lot when they have issues going on. I talk to them a lot. I fully support this. But what I want to do is make sure that code enforcement keeps that area updated, because she told me when I talked to her that they get a lot of people from around the world, different places, and some of the comments that are being made when they come on that street. So once the name is changed, we got to make sure that the area is up to code, and it don't have to be the way that it is, especially with the I think the mechanic shop or something that's over there, just to make sure that code enforcement do what they should do in that area. And it's not just that area, but it's throughout the whole city as a whole, to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do to keep the city updated. But I fully support the renaming of the street, fully, because they really give back to the community. So I fully support it.
Thank you.
Bell Ethnic is an invaluable asset to our community and has been for decades. And so definitely thank you for bringing this forward. I think it would be helpful. So there are about 6 residential properties on the street. That would be, you said it's 10 properties, they own 4. So that would, I was going to ask how many residential, so that's about 6. It would be helpful, Mr. King, if Ms. Smith can give an overview of what the process is, because I know we went through this with Harold Sheets, but that was a while ago and I can't remember. I know there's some things that we have to do. So it'd be helpful if we just you can refresh at least my recollection on what the process is. That would be helpful.
Good evening again. Yeah, in reference to the street naming process, it has to go through a series of public notices, as well as the properties or the street has to be they will have to be posted, and we'll be working with our Public Works team members, and it'll be a group effort. But there's a series of advertisements as well as property postings and legal ads that have to be placed. And it's gonna take a month or two probably to have that done.
And then is there a public hearing before us?
Yes,
And then that's when we would make the decision.
yes. So it won't be on Monday's meeting because we'll
No.
have to go through that public notice process.
This was just to kind of inform us and give us a heads up and test the temperature of council around moving, whether there's an appetite to even explore this, but they have to
Yes.
go through the process. Okay. And then we will decide later. So y'all will put it on the agenda at the appropriate time.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Nope. All righty. Council discussion and possible action on resolution to establish qualifying dates for the November 7, 2023 election. Madam Deputy City Clerk.
Yes, the city clerk would like to bring forth a resolution establishing the qualifying dates for the November 7th election, and the dates will be August 21st through August 23rd.
And so does anyone have an objection to the resolution being on consent? We've already approved the fees previously.
Can she also state the time?
Yes, so I wrote the times down. It will be from 8:30 to 4:30, and it'll be closed for lunch from 1 to 2. (8:30 to 4:30). And close from 1 to 2 for lunch. Qualifying period, yep.
Completes the resolution on consent. Next up, non-owner occupied certification, Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, Mayor Holiday Ingram. We've had a problem with non-owner occupied property, whether there's bank homes or corporate homes, or it also addresses the squatting issue. So there is a non-owner occupied certificate that Saginaw, Michigan has. And it so happens our city attorney has some intimate knowledge about this. His grasp and reach is just overwhelming. He must be a Marvel superhero. So what I'm presenting to council today is the following. What this owner occupied certification allows is for the city to document all non-owner occupied property and require that there's a fee attached to that. But what's more important than the fee is the fact that we have a database of all the property that is owned, non-owner occupied. That's point one. Point two, this particular ordinance requires that if the person is out of state, there is a in-state contact person. And in addition to it, what I would like for us to consider is placing a $250 fee. This is the fee which they have in Saginaw. And that revenue, if we have, according to census data, 17,225 homes, and of those homes, 8,000 of those homes are non-owner occupied, the city will receive an additional $2 million in revenue per year if we were to adopt this ordinance. So it's a win-win-win. We get to identify those people who own the property. We get them to hold them accountable for anything that goes on at the property. And we get additional revenue. So what my ask is that we give the city attorney time to review this and specify it towards the people here in East Point and make all the changes so that we can consider this for a vote.
Councilmember Shropshire.
Thank you. Who provided this ordinance, Councilmember Butler?
Thank you. I did. I found, you mean the Saginaw?
Yes.
I looked it
And
up
you
myself.
said that the city attorney knew about this as well?
He didn't know about it till I gave it to him when he told me he helped draft it. So
So he helped drafted this ordinance?
according to what he told me today, yes, ma'am.
Okay, here's my problem. I don't have a problem with this, but I've had this item on the agenda, bank-owned houses and what the city can do to fix the problem. And I mean, it's been on here for months and months, and I've been asking the question. And all of a sudden now, we come up with an ordinance. I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is when I ask for things, it's almost like it falls on deaf ear. And all of a sudden, we come up with an ordinance that, you know what, I'm gonna leave it alone.
Councilman Butler, you have something else on the ordinance. I think you mentioned that the ask is to have the city attorney draft something. So I'm assuming you want this for the August work session.
Yeah. Well, and just so that Councilwoman Shropshire won't feel that way, I went and sought out the information to give to the city attorney. So don't, and I'm just saying, I can understand your heartburn. I understand that. But I found this and I presented it to him. So it wasn't, I don't want you to feel the heartburn of being slighted because I did the homework.
August work session, Madam Deputy City Clerk, next item, ordinance to maintain zoning in South Fulton Hospital as a hospital. Councilmember Butler, Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We did invite Councilmember Cook to participate too, and I don't want him to not be acknowledged for this particular ordinance. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ms. Gordon, and this stems from protecting the property where the current AMC South exists. Both Councilwoman Gordon and Councilmember Cook thought that this would be a good idea, and Ms. Gordon provided us with additional information.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Butler. So just to be clear, the information that I mentioned at, I think, a meeting a few months ago when this topic came up was in reference to the executive order that Mayor Andre Dickens issued for Atlanta when they were dealing with the loss of the medical center there. It was for a specific period of time, of course. And so with what we have in motion to an extent here in concerns, both me, along with even Councilmember Cook mentioned at the last meeting, the same thing, that we take a look at what Atlanta did for that brief period of time, in essence, basically allowing for some level of moratorium for a specified period of time to determine, you know, what could be the possibilities for the land. But in this instance, to make sure that we secure the zoning until we can make some sort of establishment as to what is going to actually go there, whether there are talks in motion or not, whatever the status is. We know that urgent care, I should say emergency care, is a need. We need to make sure that we have emergency care within reach, within grasp. So this is what Councilmember Butler thought we should do, is bring it forth as per my conversation, as well as that of Councilmember Cooks at the last meeting.
Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the ask would be to allow the city attorney permission to draft an ordinance that would preclude the rezoning of that property other than the use for a hospital. So we're asking we give him permission to research that and provide us some information.
So I think we should definitely explore all options. I do want to note that I looked on the Fulton County Property Appraiser page, and the location in East Point is actually zoned for medical institutional district, which has the hospital. And so if there was a rezoning for that, it would come before council. The AMC location in Atlanta was zoned for, or is zoned commercial 2, C2, which is their commercial service district. And so as you're doing your research, I'm not sure if that nuance is going to matter, but the current location at East Point is already zoned as a medical, for our medical institutional district. Go ahead, Attorney Williams.
You're correct, Madam Mayor. And if we attempt or approach rezoning it, that area is considered like a medical campus. There are several outlets that support what used to be the hospital there. So we would have to be very, very careful. I don't know that, I know I'll do further research as it relates to the C2, but I don't know that if we rezone it, I do know we need to be careful not to impact the other areas around them. And I don't know if one is tied into the other. I would have to do that research.
Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just point of clarification, point of information, I don't think we want to rezone it. We just want to make sure that, we don't want to go through the rezoning process. We just want to put a moratorium that maybe that property can't be rezoned, but per what the mayor said, it may not be necessary. And if it's not necessary, then maybe we just do a resolution saying to reiterate what we feel about that property.
So,
We should explore our remedies, but it's current zoning. I don't want us to limit what could potentially go there by imposing restrictions when it's already a medical institutional district, but look into it. And I mean, a resolution indicating, and we passed the previous one, so maybe if you want to strengthen that one to reiterate, but the current zoning, I was suggesting that if it were to try to, if it was a use that came there and they wanted to do something different, it would have to come to us for rezoning because it's a MI already, medical institutional district. But do you want this on, you all want this on the August work session for the city attorney to come back with information about how we should proceed? Oh, he looking like August is, it's a lot for August, huh? But I mean, I think, look, if you look at the two and kind of what we have and what the desire is, this might not be a heavy lift since it's medical institutional district already. And we already have another resolution that you could look at to.
and you're asking that the resolution just speak to the will of council as it relates to the status of the property in the land.
Ensuring that I think what Councilmember Gordon, Butler, and Cook are sharing, and I agree with, is that there remains healthcare on that site. I mean, ideally acute care, ER, and hospital. And so I think that's Councilmember Gordon.
Yeah, you added something, I think, in your previous comment along the lines of if someone wanted to desire another use for it, can that be in the resolution to some extent, or no?
I mean, it could, but it speaks for itself because the current zoning is what it, you understand? Like if they wanted to do something different,
right,
they'd have to go through our rezoning process. I mean, but it's not that we could restate the obvious in the resolution. Just a note that if there were a different use, it would have to go through rezoning. A use outside of medical institutional district. So you think you can pull it off for August work session? How good were you in college? All right. Here, I gotta ask. Any executive session items? City manager?
No.
Interim city interim city attorney?
He moved away from me like I was going to.
Because you probably got some.
Nah.
Okay, council. Okay, if not.
I want to
good
say
night.
something.
Oh.
It's just a little announcement. I just want to ask everybody to please root and cheer for Chris Eubanks. He made history.
He
Chris,
just won the Wilburton.
Chris's mom used to pick up my son, and he and Chris would go to the tennis center every day after school. And Justin wanted to pick up every tennis ball on the court when I came from home to pick him up from school. So Chris is an awesome kid. He went to Westlake, and he is just phenomenal. He made history. He is the third African-American to make it to the quarterfinals of Wimbledon, including Arthur Ashe. And today is Arthur Ashe's birthday. So this is just amazing.
Okay.
So cheer for Chris.
I saw that today too. Yeah, Westlake and Georgia Tech. Yes, Atlanta's own. So let's root for Chris Eubanks. And good night, East Pointers. Oh, you? Who had something?